Welcome back, everyone. So many of you have asked about Vedic astrology, so, we thought, okay, let's do a deep dive, and we're going deep into one of the classic texts.
Yeah, Brihat Jataka.
Brihat Jataka.
Yeah.
This is, like, the ultimate guide to jyotish. It was composed way back in ancient times, written in Sanskrit, and it really lays out all of the core principles.
What's so cool about the Brihat Jataka is that it moves beyond the simple, personality traits
Right.
that you find in a typical, modern-day horoscope, and actually gives you a comprehensive system for understanding life, destiny, even predicting events based on the positions of the planets at the time of your birth.
Okay, so I'm already hooked.
Yeah.
Let's unpack some of this ancient wisdom. So I know that Brihat Jataka kicks off with this concept of the Kalapurusha. Can you explain exactly what that is?
Yeah, so the Kalapurusha is the cosmic being whose body maps to the zodiac signs.
Okay.
So essentially each sign corresponds to a specific part of this cosmic being. You can almost imagine it like a cosmic anatomy chart.
Ooh, I like that, a cosmic anatomy chart. So give us some examples then. How do specific signs relate to the Kalapurusha?
Yeah, so for instance, Aries is the head, Taurus
Yeah.
would be the face and the neck, and so on and so on.
Okay.
And the book goes into really vivid descriptions, almost like an astrological anatomy lesson.
So it's not just like, oh, Aries is impulsive. It's like Aries rules the head, and that's connected to this particular energy.
Exactly. And the visual descriptions that it gives in the Brihat Jataka are so memorable. For example, it describes Meena, the sign of the fishes, as two fish swimming in opposite directions,
Ah, interesting.
hinting at that kind of duality, that push and pull that we often associate with this sign. It also describes Danas, the archer, as this centaur.
A centaur.
Yeah, blending that human intellect with animalistic strength.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, each sign has a planetary ruler.
Yeah. Right.
And that influences different aspects of life based on its position.
Yeah. Okay, so we have this cosmic being, this Kalapurusha, and the planets are kind of like guests hanging out in different parts of its body, influencing us here on Earth. But what I find super fascinating is how Brihat Jataka actually describes the planets themselves. It's like they have these very distinct personalities.
Yeah, it's almost as if this cosmic drama is unfolding.
I like that.
And each planet has its role to play. So take, for example, the sun.
Okay.
Brihat Jataka describes it as dark red, bilious with short hairs.
Not exactly that sunshine and rainbows image that usually comes to mind, right?
Yeah, and it goes on to say that the sun actually represents the Atma, or the soul.
The soul. So it definitely makes you think about the power of the sun, in a whole new light.
Totally.
Okay, so what about the moon? What kind of personality does it have in this cosmic drama?
The moon is described as white with much wind and phlegm,
Okay.
symbolizing the mind.
Hmm.
So, at first glance, these descriptions might seem a little strange, a little out there,
Yeah.
but they actually offer specific details about that planet's influence on human life.
So it's not just that the moon makes you moody, like we, kind of joke about. There's a system of logic behind these descriptions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's connecting those specific qualities of the moon to its influence on the mind.
Hmm.
And then it goes even deeper because it talks about, this idea of planetary friendships and enmities.
Mm.
So almost like, imagine the planets having specific energies that either complement each other
Or a clash.
or clash, yeah.
Like good chemistry or a personality clash.
Exactly, yeah. So certain planets just get along better than others based on the inherent qualities.
Interesting.
And that impacts how we interpret their influence in the birth chart.
So it's not just each planet doing its own thing, it's how they interact with each other that brings in this element of tension and collaboration.
It's about understanding the bigger picture of how these different planetary energies are playing out.
And ultimately influencing our lives.
Right.
Okay, so we've got this intricate web of planets, signs, cosmic connections. But now I want to get into the nitty-gritty of the predictive part. How does Brihat Jataka actually use all this information to make predictions about, our lives and the events that might unfold?
Well, it uses a variety of really fascinating techniques.
Okay.
And one of the key concepts that it talks about is dashas,
Dashas.
which are planetary periods that govern different phases of life, almost like chapters in a story.
Ooh, okay. So, like, Saturn's in charge of your teenage angst chapter, and then Jupiter takes over for the everything's coming up roses phase.
You could think about it that way, yeah. So each dasha is ruled by a specific planet, and that brings its energy, its themes to the forefront during that period.
Okay. And this is where I think Brihat Jataka really gets interesting because it goes beyond just these general, predictions, and it links specific dashas to career paths. It even uses the lunar position at the moment of conception to, predict things like the sex of a child.
It's quite remarkable how detailed this ancient system gets.
It is. It is. And, another predictive technique that we should probably talk about is Ashtaka Varga, which, I always find kind of fascinating because it's a point system.
It is. It's all about calculating planetary strengths and weaknesses based on this point system.
So some planets are like your cosmic cheerleaders. Some are maybe throwing a little bit of shade.
That's a colorful way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the point system reveals where each planet thrives and struggles in your birth chart,
Okay.
offering further insight into, both your potential and challenges.
Okay, so we've got dashas for timing, Ashtaka Varga for planetary power. What else is in the Brihat Jataka cosmic toolbox?
Well, Brihat Jataka also describes these things called yogas, which are special combinations of planets that create specific outcomes in a person's life. And these can range from, things like poverty to, believe it or not, royal power, depending on the planets involved and their positions in the chart.
Royal power. Okay, now you have my attention. Tell me more about these yogas.
Well, there are yogas for practically every aspect of life. For example, it describes certain combinations that indicate wealth through writing or music.
So even back then, centuries ago, people were looking to the stars for career advice.
Exactly. It's fascinating. This ancient text is seeking to connect these cosmic patterns to real-life outcomes.
Okay, I'm ready to hear more about these intriguing predictive techniques, but I think we need to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Yeah, you're right. Those predictive techniques, we could talk about them all day. Let's dive into those yogas a bit deeper.
Okay, yeah. So you were saying, there's different types of yogas.
There are, and one in particular is called Raja Yoga.
Raja Yoga.
Which suggests the potential for leadership, authority, and, success.
So it's like having the cosmic green light to, take on those leadership roles.
Well, it's more about having the inherent qualities and opportunities that could lead to success.
Right. You still got to do the work. Okay, what other yogas are there that we should know about? Are there any that are particularly interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's Dana Yoga, indicating potential for wealth and financial prosperity.
Ooh.
And then there's Jnana Yoga, suggesting a strong inclination towards knowledge, wisdom, self-discovery. So it really kind of acknowledges both material and spiritual aspirations in this ancient text.
It's a very holistic approach.
Yeah.
Speaking of different aspects of life, I'm thinking about relationships.
Right.
You mentioned Brihat Jataka covers, like marriage, children. How does it actually approach those areas?
It dives deep.
Okay.
So it looks at compatibility between partners, potential challenges in a relationship,
Okay.
and even the timing of marriage.
Okay.
All based on these planetary positions and combinations.
So it's like a cosmic matchmaker.
In a sense, yeah.
Does it get into specifics about the relationship itself, like beyond just whether it will happen or not?
It does. Yeah, so it looks at the potential for happiness, harmony,
Okay.
even challenges like separation or widowhood.
Right.
Reflecting, of course, the realities of life back then.
Of course, yeah, it makes sense that a system developed centuries ago would, have to address those concerns.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a window into the social landscape of that era.
Yeah.
And what about, having children? Does the Brihat Jataka predict anything about that?
Yeah, it talks about the potential for having children, the number of offspring,
Okay.
and even some techniques for gender prediction.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's certainly controversial, even for those who are, open to astrology and things like that.
Right.
But it does show how, this system goes really deep into connecting these cosmic events to everyday life.
It does raise the question, though, about how much is, predetermined and how much is up to, our choices.
Right. This whole destiny versus free will debate.
Exactly. Yeah. So, does Brihat Jataka address that? Like, is there any kind of nod to that in this text?
That's a great question because it's so easy to get caught up in those predictive aspects.
Right.
And forget that, we are not just puppets on cosmic strings.
Yeah. And, while it does emphasize the influence of the planets and their placements, it also introduces concepts like karma.
Okay.
And reincarnation.
So past actions influencing the present
Yes.
choices today impacting the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adding a layer of complexity to this whole idea of, destiny.
Right.
Yeah. Suggesting that our present life is shaped by past actions. And
Okay.
choices today influence our future.
Okay, so maybe less about, it being fixed and more about understanding, what currents we're swimming in and learning how to navigate them skillfully.
That's a great analogy.
Mm,
It's about recognizing the influences, both from the past and from the cosmos,
yeah.
but also understanding that we do have the power to make choices,
Hmm.
take actions that shape our lives.
So it's like we can be aware of the wind, but we're still the ones steering the ship.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, earlier we touched on planetary strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
So can you break it down a little bit more? Like, how does Brihat Jataka actually determine those?
So the strength of a planet in your chart depends on a few things.
Okay.
Its placement in the zodiac, obviously,
Mm.
the aspects it receives from other planets, and even the time of day or year you were born.
So a planet can be like a VIP in one chart and barely get noticed in another.
Yeah, that's a fun way to think about it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for example, a strong Jupiter might indicate good fortune, wisdom, spiritual blessings,
Okay.
whereas a weaker Jupiter could signify challenges in those
Right,
areas.
yeah.
So it's not just enough to know which planets are in your chart, but how much influence they actually have.
Okay, so let's say you figure out you have a weaker planet. What do you do? Can you do anything about it, or are you just stuck with these cosmic shortcomings?
Well, this is where that concept of remedies comes in.
Okay. Yeah.
Or upaya, as it's called, in Vedic astrology.
Mm.
And it offers a whole system of practices aimed at strengthening those weaker planets or mitigating the negative influences.
Okay, so tell me more about these remedies. I'm all about those cosmic life hacks, like what can we do?
Well, they range from, simple practices like chanting mantras or wearing specific gemstones
Okay.
to more involved actions like performing rituals or making charitable donations. So it's like this cosmic toolkit
Yeah.
you can use to fine-tune your destiny.
I love that. Okay, fine-tune your destiny, so it brings us back to that idea of free will, right? Like, if you can use these remedies to actually, shift your fate,
Right.
doesn't that suggest you do have some level of control?
Right. It's a question that continues to spark debate.
Mm.
Yeah. So while Brihat Jataka emphasizes that cosmic influence, it also seems to acknowledge the power of human action and intention.
So it's not just passively accepting whatever the stars have in store for us.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about understanding those influences,
Yeah.
but recognizing that we have this capacity to make choices,
Yeah.
take actions
Mhm.
to shape our experience.
It's that dance between fate and free will.
Yeah,
Recognizing the influences, but also being empowered to actively participate.
exactly.
Yeah, so we talked about, earlier there's this section in Brihat Jataka called Jataka.
Right.
And I love that this ancient text, acknowledges that there needs to be a different approach for interpreting women's charts.
Exactly.
So what are some of the key areas that Sri Jataka actually covers?
It covers a lot of different aspects of a woman's life, from,
Mhm.
marriage and children to health and character.
Okay.
Looking at compatibility with potential partners,
Okay.
potential for marital happiness, and even likelihood of motherhood.
So it's like an ancient guide to navigating womanhood through the lens of astrology.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It reflects the social context of the time, but still, it's fascinating to see how this ancient system sought to address these specific experiences
Right.
and challenges.
Yeah. Faced by women.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered planets, signs, dashas, yogas, remedies, even this unique section on, women's charts.
Go.
But I'm wondering, does the Brihat Jataka actually offer any insight into the purpose of life?
Mm.
Beyond the individual predictions, is there a larger philosophical message?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that makes this text so compelling.
Okay.
Yeah, so beyond those technical aspects and predictions, it really offers a perspective
Okay.
that connects the individual to the cosmos.
So it's not just what's going to happen to me, but what's my place in this larger web of existence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things, reminding us that we're part of this grand cosmic dance influenced by forces beyond our control,
Yeah.
yet also capable of shaping our own destinies through our choices and actions.
Wow, that's such a beautiful and humbling perspective, right?
It is.
Recognizing both, our limitations and our potential
Yeah.
within this vast universe.
Yeah.
Okay, we've really gone deep into the world of Brihat Jataka,
Have.
uncovering all these insights into life, destiny, and the human experience.
Yeah.
And it's been such an incredible journey.
It has.
But before we wrap up our deep dive, I
Yeah.
have one final thought-provoking question to leave you with. Okay, so we've been talking about all these different concepts in the Brihat Jata,
Mm.
this idea of the Kalapurusha, this cosmic being, right?
Yeah.
And its body being mapped to the zodiac signs, and then the planets being like these guests influencing different parts of this being.
Right.
But we also touched upon this concept of like planetary strength.
Yeah.
Not all planets are created equal in every chart.
No, they're not. And that's actually a really important point
Yeah.
to understand, because a planet's strength really depends on its placement in the zodiac.
Mm-hmm.
The aspects it receives from other planets,
Okay.
even the time of your birth. It's not simply about which planets are in your chart,
Right.
but how much influence they have.
I like that. So it's almost like some planets have a louder voice than others, depending on, where they're hanging out and what company they're keeping
Yeah,
in the chart.
that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
And, the Brihat Jataka provides this system for calculating those strengths,
Okay.
which adds a whole other layer of understanding to how those planets are actually shaping our lives.
Okay, so I'm kind of fascinated by this idea. Can you give me an example? Like, how would planetary strength play out in someone's chart?
Well, let's say someone has a strong Jupiter in their chart.
Okay.
So in the Brihat Jataka, Jupiter is associated with good fortune, wisdom, spiritual growth.
Okay.
So this person might experience those themes more prominently in their life.
Okay, so they might find it easier to attract abundance or, make wise decisions or even connect with their spiritual side.
Absolutely.
Mm.
On the flip side, someone with a weaker Jupiter in their chart might have to work a little harder
Okay.
to cultivate those qualities, or they might face challenges related to those themes.
It's almost like some planets are giving you a boost and other planets are making you work for it, right?
You could say that, yeah.
So let's say I figure out, I've got a weaker planet in my chart.
Mm.
Is there anything I can do about that, or am I just stuck with this cosmic shortcoming?
Well, remember those remedies we talked about?
Yeah, the cosmic life hacks.
Yeah. So upaya, as it's called in Vedic astrology, really offers a way to strengthen those weaker planets or mitigate their more negative influences.
So it's not like I'm just, totally at the mercy of this planet that's not, really giving me its full support.
You're not.
It's about understanding those energies that are at play and finding ways to, harmonize or shift them in a more favorable direction.
Okay, so tell me more about these remedies. Like, what are some of the things that the Brihat Jataka suggests we can do?
Well, they can range from pretty simple practices like chanting mantras
Okay.
or wearing certain gemstones to, more involved things like performing rituals or making charitable donations.
Okay, so it's really like having like a cosmic toolkit.
It is.
Yeah, that we can use to actually like fine-tune our destiny a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so, this idea of these remedies, it really brings us back to that whole, the destiny versus free will debate, right?
Right.
Like, if you're actively able to shift your fate.
Doesn't that suggest that you do have a certain level of agency? Like you're not just, bound by these cosmic influences.
Yeah, it's a question that continues to, spark a lot of debate even today. Yeah, so while, the Brihat Jataka really emphasizes that cosmic influence,
Okay.
it also seems to acknowledge the power of human action and intention.
So it's not just, being passive and accepting whatever the stars have in store for us.
No, not at all.
We do have the power to direct our own lives, even, within this cosmic framework.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, we've been talking about all these really specific, predictive techniques and remedies and things like that. But, at the end of the day, does Brihat Jataka actually offer any insight into the purpose of life? Beyond those individual predictions, like, is there a larger philosophical message that it's trying to convey?
That's a great question. And, I think that's what makes Brihat Jataka so compelling,
Okay.
is that beyond, just the technical stuff and the predictions, it really does offer a perspective
Okay.
that connects the individual to the cosmos.
So it's not just what's going to happen to me. It's understanding what my role is in this bigger picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it emphasizes that interconnectedness of all things.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds us that we're all part of this grand cosmic dance, influenced by forces beyond our control, but also capable of shaping our own destinies through our choices and actions.
Wow. That is such a beautiful and humbling perspective.
Yeah, really.
Recognizing both our limitations and our potential within this vast universe.
Absolutely.
Well, wow, this has been an incredible journey. We've really gone deep into this world of Vedic astrology, guided by this wisdom of the Brihat Jataka.
Yeah, it's quite an incredible text.
It is. It's intricate, it's insightful, and it's definitely giving us a lot to think about.
Yeah, and it reminds us that astrology is so much more than just a set of predictions.
Mm-hmm.
It's an invitation to really deepen our understanding of ourselves,
Yeah.
the world around us, the mysteries of the cosmos.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you all with this one final thought. Brihat Jataka offers us this framework for understanding our place in the grand scheme of things. But this journey of self-discovery and understanding the cosmos, it's an ongoing one.
It is.
It's an exploration that continues long after this deep dive ends.